Hey guys, it's Will. So it's the weekend and we're gearing up for what could be a huge week ahead of the markets. And we just wrapped up some meetings at this quantum computing conference. Thank you guys so much for all the support. We were able to get some insights and go to this event, get a media pass, and really connect with some companies that are seeming to be overlooked by most investors. So I want to go over some really good updates for quantum later this week. And right now, I want to shift gears to some AI and data center and defense companies that are positioned to lead some of the next wave of technology. And not really hype, not really headlines. We're more looking at infrastructure, the contracts, financials, momentum that could define the next few days in the market. So excited to see what happens on Monday. Just a quick note. I had an outpouring of requests of people that reached out that missed the lifetime access after we closed it. And we listened and it's available again. So I don't know how long it will stay open. If you want to join us at Market Open for our live trading sessions, it's the lifetime link now and it's the second link in the description. We listen to you guys. I want to make sure that everybody is happy with our products and making sure that they have access to them in a way that's economical. So of course we reintroduced it for those of you guys that missed out on it. So again, second link below. When it comes to the companies we're going to follow this week, we have Black Sky, so we're going to get into some space tech. We're watching them at a support level, but really wanted to jump in and start off with some data centers, maybe some drone tech. We could touch on some AI defense as well, and we'll keep it nice and brief and get some good analysis at the same time. So how's everybody doing here on the Saturday? Everybody having a good time as we jump into the markets today. What's everybody's focus right now? And I want to know if you guys have any ticker symbols. Definitely drop them down below, as I'd be more than happy to take a look at them. Yeah, so we just got back into LA here, so we're going to be here for the next little bit, and then we're going to beeline up to NorCal, and that'll take us back home. But we're going to jump in right now. Let's dive into APLD. This is a data center company really driving a lot of the growth in the semiconductor space. And I see Kush is tuned in. Hey, Kush, what's going on? Howdy there. Moheen says, hey, Will, how are you? I'm doing well, man. Just did a lot of travel, which was perfectly timed for the weekend because we were exhausted, Tammy and I, my wife, when we got back here. So it's been good. It's been a lot of travel. Got to go see some family in Albuquerque, go to that conference. It was excellent. Savor the Sky says, what's up, man? What's going on, man? How are you doing today? All right, so it's a little later live stream, but we're still seeing some people tuning in. And Moheen says, AMD had a slight dip, I reckon. We will be hitting all-time highs soon. Yeah, we could take a look at AMD. I love that play right now. Marty Clark says, anyone use the Vay app yet? I think it may only be used in Vegas right now, but I'm unsure. Not sure about the app, Marty. Not sure what you're referring to there. And then Yanis Travel says, hello from Romania. It's 6:42 here. Awesome. Hey, thanks for tuning in. I've always wanted to go there, actually. Be beautiful to make our way over there. And Savor the Sky says, RR stock, so Rich Tech Robotics, potentially could take a look there. Marty's got... wants to know about some AMD, some eVTOL potentially, and RX there. And then Gene Byrne is wondering about quantum cybersecurity stock, and we could take a look there. Now we'll start it off here with APLD, and we'll jump into AMD next, and then get an idea of some of those drone/defense companies. Awesome, guys. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully everyone's having a good one. All right, so APLD stock has really had some momentum over the last year or so. Seen them start to find support and build their market cap from 85 cents in 2022, shifting from building what were like Bitcoin mining hubs for companies to actually building data centers for big tech. And we see them really build their market cap over the last few years. Into 2025, they had highs of $12.50, and then by summer, they had sold down, or April with the greater market, down to $3. And recently we've seen them make a big run up to these levels. And this is kind of the new trend we're watching as APLD starts to drag out a little bit, sell down to this $14 price point after all-time highs. Well, not all-time, but one of their all-time highs, except for 2021 when they had a big spike there, of getting up into the $17 range. So one of the focuses for APLD is definitely going to be on the financials heating up, because they have some really big contracts that have come in. One of the companies that they build data centers for, it's going to be CoreWeave. So you can see this data center they're building in North Dakota, and these are some very large data centers. And they also are building for not just CoreWeave, which is an interesting play there, because CoreWeave has been a really volatile company, but they have what could be $11 billion in future revenue from those build outs of data centers. And then Corey says, "Hey pal, good evening. We're all ears. Thank you." Hey Corey, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you, man. Thanks for tuning in. And yeah, of course, I'm all ears for you if you got any stocks you want us to take a look at. And so APLD, with the data center building, it's really perfect timing around AI right now. Every single company that we heard report earnings over 2025 and towards the end of 2024, from Apple to Tesla to Google to Microsoft, all said they were planning on investing more into data centers. And so Applied Digital is building those data centers for what is, let's see if we can go to the main site. They have the outline of their company, because they have empowering AI's revolution here. The main thing we see is that they're building not traditional data centers, but scalable companies with power efficiency. What does power efficiency mean? Power efficiency is building data centers that are in the right locations. So you see North Dakota, that's a cold place. That's going to help them keep the data center cool. How many of you guys have seen like all of the craziness with the data center build outs, or the manufacturing build out in for Taiwan Semiconductor? Taiwan Semiconductor is building out their place over in Arizona. And if I'm not mistaken, they're having a ton of trouble with this nightmare. It's like a $40 billion nightmare of duplicating, and they got $40 billion allocated to it, and they have significant operation hurdles from potential delays in the semiconductor production, but also from second guessing the geology, second guessing the water, the air, and the outlook for building data centers in such a hot place of Arizona. And so then you see that kind of as a trouble that happens with some of the build outs in hotter places. And then you look at APLD, when they're working with Supermicro, Nvidia, Dell, Hewlett Packard Enterprise. It's funny, I was just on a plane today. Got to talk with a gentleman for a while on the plane who worked for Hewlett Packard Enterprise. And he was really fascinated by some of the software we're building out right now. We had a really good conversation. He was super into the AI that we're building here with Mercatus, the machine. And we really had some great conversations. But it's funny because I didn't really pay much attention to Hewlett Packard Enterprise until I just met him today. But again, they got Nvidia, Dell Technologies as partners. And so it's really interesting to see that kind of play out. And it's so funny too with that Hewlett Packard gentleman that I met today. I'm sitting on the plane, and every time, I don't know what it is, I sit on the plane, I'll sit next to people that usually have not very much in common with me. A lot of times, not always, but most of the time. But somehow, I don't know, the people that are like really great for our team, or people that we really want to meet, Tammy always ends up sitting next to them on the plane. So it was really funny. It's like she sat next to him on the plane after the flight, she gets off the plane and she's like, wait, I got this guy that works at Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and he's like, he's really smart about AI, and he's doing sales, and he's doing these, and he's like, just wait, because you guys gotta talk. And then, it's just so funny because she always brings these, like, I joke about it, but like 70% of our team in our company that like works on our investing software, and like our partnership that we have with Robinhood, that we have a team kind of that requires things that we have to get done and improve, and sell product and things like that. And like every person in the company, I think, except for Ryan, our developer, who came from the YouTube channel actually, has come from Tammy, my wife, meeting people. Whether it's like, it's so funny. She just is like a magnet for meeting the right people for working in our company and stuff. It's so funny. But anyway, when we're looking at the investor relations, looking at APLD, why we like them is because we're using AI. Everybody's using AI. Everybody's using ChatGPT, and so it's becoming more prominent. And so data centers are seeing a big surge in demand, and that is exactly where APLD comes in. And they have the $3.6 billion market cap. Their revenue is kind of holding. It's increasing year over year, but it's kind of holding, and actually even declined. But they also haven't accounted for their new contracts, these new leases of $10-11 billion that just came in for the data center constructions. And so I think we'll see an improvement there. Annual revenues are up about 5% year over year, and their assets are up 145% year over year. So they've really seen big surges, up to about $2 billion in assets now on their balance sheet. So that looks really good for them. So that's kind of why we follow them. Now, when we went to, not this quantum conference we went to this week, and Patrick, thanks, I appreciate the $2, man. Thank you so much. We'll end up putting that towards a coffee probably. We usually fly, but we're actually driving. California, we're gonna probably be driving, I think, tomorrow or Monday back to Northern California. Well, I'll get a coffee, man. Appreciate it. Patrick says, "What's up, Will? Been watching you for about a week. Appreciate your content. Thanks for all that you do." Thanks, Patrick. Appreciate you tuning in, man. Yeah, I'm glad it's valuable. So, what's the fair value? What's the next steps for APLD? Well, we see them recently pull down. They're in this overall uptrend to this $17.50 range. With the market that they're in a really great market. We do see them break this near support, this previous resistance, and sell back down to this support now at about $13.50, and looking to continue this trend. Now, this is a pretty crucial support that could also be the level at which we see them bounce, which is right here at about $13.75. So $13.75, $14 a share is where they're at now. And we could even see that kind of greater trend if you account for that big spike we saw back here, and you kind of pull down and see how this trend is looking here. See, it's actually would be more, with the exception of this pretty big spike after they signed that CoreWeave deal, which maybe could have been an overextension, and accounting for that being an overreaction. It's possible this is kind of the greater trend here, and we're seeing it stair step up. Try and find that 1375 as a support, and RSI MACD now indicating more of an oversold estimate at around 30 on the RSI, and then MACD is down as well near that support. So what we'd watch for is more validation. It's not necessarily a bad time. I don't have any short-term positions going in APLD. We just have long-term positions that we're holding. Now, if we're going to trade any long-term position or shorter-term positions with APLD, what matters most if you're looking at shorter-term trades is going to be not the timing. Okay, it's kind of like someone says, what can I do to get more time? How can I get the time right? And you can't get more time. You can't get timing perfect. It's like if you ask somebody, I need more time for this. Uh, can I take some of this guy's time? You can't take time from other people. When the clock hits the time, that's what it is. When the sun comes up, the sun comes up. When the sun goes down, it's pretty consistent. Now, when it comes to timing trades, we don't have any desire to do that. I know there's a lot of people on YouTube that are like, timing is the only thing, and you just got to get it at the perfect time in this. But that's never going to be something that we can't. That is never going to be the key determiner of our success. Your success determined by your process. We don't know that BlackRock doesn't buy or sell tomorrow. We don't know that a Vanguard on Monday decides to pick up a couple $1 billion of APLD. We don't know, but we do know that we can identify value. So time, something you can't, multiply and just get perfect. Timing is harder to get than identifying value. You can identify value better than you can identify timing. And so when it comes to this trade, for example, if we're going to look at, yes, probabilities look like it could bounce this 1350, 1375. Yes, the AI market's in a good spot, and they've gotten some new contracts building data centers for big tech companies, and they're still a relatively small market cap, and it hasn't reflected in their revenue yet, which those could all be catalysts that would grow them up. But when we're looking at the timing of it, we don't know. What we do know is that we can have a plan together. So if we're looking for this potential bounce here in a shorter term trade, probably have some risk management somewhere around this 2 to 3% margin of risk, or further, probably no more than 3%. And we'd be looking for a swing here of about 10% to about 30% margin for profit. So you see how we kind of start off identifying the risk. That's going to be a key factor in the development of the process. So if we have the risk mapped out, a lot of people only look at the reward and don't look at the risk. Some people only look at the risk and don't look at the reward. That's a tough spot. But we're looking at minimum about 2 to 3% risk probably if we enter a trade in this week, and we'd be looking for a margin really of about 5 to 10% initially, up into that $15.50 range, to potentially up into that $17 to $18 range. Now, institutional attracting value, I think so. We just kind of have to see too where the market's shifting from a direction standpoint this week. So hopefully that makes sense. Alex, what's going on? Thanks for tuning in. Michael Anthony says, Friday job report could sell more downside in the markets. Does everyone think being at highs? Yeah, I mean, there's definitely that high, all-time high with SPY. A lot of tech stocks at the all-time high. But what do we know, when that happens? A lot of times, it's not necessarily because, sometimes it could be greed, for sure. But it could also be, a lot of these companies are creating a massive amount of value that we've never seen before, ever. So it's so funny because some people, they say it's at the top, it's a bubble, and they've been saying it for years. And that could be the case. Of course, SPY at all-time high, we could see some pullbacks. But so many times, like we said, it's a tough spot to only identify the risk and not identify the margins for profit. Like in the markets, yes, consider that overbought sentiment and greed, but also consider the tremendous amount of value creation that's increasing the value of these companies as well. And so it's like the saying, it's like, if you're trying to figure out, why you shouldn't do something, let's say there's like, you want to do something that you think will make you more successful, or it's a good trade idea, or it's a good investment. You only need one reason to convince yourself not to do it. There's only one reason you need. Some people think, well, because this and the inflation report and the stagflation, and those are all factors for sure. But ultimately, what's going to matter most, you could find a million reasons to think things are overvalued. You only need one reason, really, You don't need a million reasons. But when it comes to the most important key, it's going to be the process. It's going to be the risk management. It's going to be the patience if you're buying long term. that those things there are really where the value in your portfolio can compound. And differentiating between the short term and long term, and playing the long term game that has more margin for error and more time horizons that can have a higher probability of growing your long-term wealth alongside the short-term trading is also a way to tilt the odds in your favor. So we like to do that too. So the next stock we're going to take a look at, and I see Brandon's here. Brandon says, I remember Craig Supercomputer in Colorado Springs back in the 80s. Crazy they're still around. They were known for liquid-cooled gallium chips back then. Not sure what they do now. Oh, that's really interesting. Colorado Springs. It's an innovative place. That's where they had the space symposium. It's a really cool place there. Mike, I actually used to work at an institution in Boulder. I was a financial consultant, and when I was first starting out, I had to figure out how to get accounts. And what we would do is I would drive all the way from Boulder to Colorado Springs. It's about an hour and a half, something like that, 3 hours round trip. And I would go to there's a Department of Corrections where people get out of prison there in Colorado Springs. And I would sit there, and all the people getting out of jail, all the people getting out of prison, I would be that guy that would say, hey, you guys just are getting out of jail. I have these accounts to get you started, free bank accounts to get you on the right track. And that's how I started building clientele. We went enterprise, and I went direct to other, companies, business to business. But when I was first starting, I'm like, how can I get a ton of accounts? I was like, let's offer free bank accounts to a bunch of people just getting out of prison. I spent a lot of time in Colorado Springs. And you see the top, I've met millionaires, I've met billionaires actually. And I've also met people that are just getting out of prison. So I can see it. I can see the difference in financial starting, like where you have to go, what you have to set to get to where you want to go. So when it comes to data centers, the other stock we have here is going to be AMD stock. So AMD, they're in data centers as well. And AMD stock has had a recent correction down from that 186. They were stair-stepping up with this very bullish uptrend over the last few months, really, from April until here. And we recently saw them pull down and stretch their trend out. You can kind of see now how this is looking. You see this overall uptrend. They're stair-stepping, and they broke this support. They tried to hold it. You saw institutions maybe try and keep it above. It was bouncing, and then boom, it sold off down to this next level of support here that it found back in July. So AMD has sold down as well. You can kind of see that recent correction here. And the question is, do they continue up into all-time highs? And I think so. I think they're going to go to all-time highs. I don't know if it's going to happen necessarily right here in this run. It could take some time, but really what we like about AMD is they are providing the microchips for Starlink. Okay, so for Elon's company, and that's a really big endeavor because there's two things that make that so good, but they're all tied to AMD having really great technology. And the two things are that you have Starlink saying, we're willing to go with AMD over the next, 10 years, or no, 50 years, 100 years, and trust their technology to put it inside of our Starlink satellite. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that in that partnership, it also demonstrates that they're being seen as superior in certain instances as opposed to NVIDIA. And that's something we haven't seen NVIDIA really get that competition. So AMD recently, if you go Starlink, you could find some of our videos. We have some stuff out there on that. But AMD has been doubling down on their data centers, and it's reflecting in their financials. They have continually improved their revenue. Every year, they're up at least 10% on their revenue. except for maybe a slight dip in 2023. We see them really continually and exponentially grow. 25 billion in 2024. So far in 2025, it looks like they're on track to bring in more than that, about 28 or 30 billion dollars. Net income is positive, and their quarterly assets from the balance sheet, they have 74 billion in assets, and bringing in again just about 30 billion a year on track here. So that puts them at about 110 billion in probably positive income and assets. Why are we watching the market cap there? Just simply put, it means they're still higher on the market cap, but they're positioning themselves right now to be a data center behemoth. So if you look at AMD data centers and what they're planning to do here, there's a couple really important things to note about what they recently have been announcing. So if we go to AMD, you can kind of see how they shifted from gaming with their GPUs over to now the data center side. So they got Dell Technologies is a partner, Microsoft, Lenovo, Sonos, Epic Games, Microsoft Azure. So they're in Hewlett Packard's clientele, Salesforce, Google, Oracle, Amazon, AWS. These are the biggest tech companies in the world that are relying on data center AI developments with the Instinct GPU and the Epic CPUs. So they have their data center development there really kicking into gear for the company. So that's been the main revenue driver, why they're seeing a lot of growth. And they recently pulled back. So with this recent pullback, a couple things to consider. They do have now what is the RSI and MACD looking oversold. If we go into more of like a 4-hour outlook, you can see that RSI and MACD looking oversold. Last time we got into these levels, we did see a bounce, and the bounce on AMD there last time was about 7%, and I think it was from about April, no further, $75 a share here, up until about July, where we were able to make, I think we were able to make somewhere around 10 to 15,000 in one trade, just simply playing this swing of this massive sell down that they had despite really good earnings. And then we also have some AMD positions that we entered into for the long term that we've been holding a while. And so the short term positions, we don't have anything on short term, but we did get in back around 100 as well, and we got a small position there up about 46%. And so what we're looking what we're looking into for their technology is continued momentum. They have this support level at about 150, which is where they're at right now. If we're going to see a bullish bounce, it's about a 10% margin for profit up into this 164, which that would be ideal. Yeah, we could see bounce into that 175 or making it to all-time highs. That's definitely on the radar, that 20% to 40% or 30%. But really we're watching to see if they can make this run from about 150 up into that 162. We do have the jobs reports, things like that could potentially impact market conditions tomorrow. And they did sell down, the biggest we've seen them sell down in quite a bit, which was about 7% on Friday. But that kind of sets the stage for what could be a nice bounce recovery heading into this second week in September. So we're going to take a look there on AMD stock as well. From the Starlink satellites to the data centers to the GPUs and the competition, taking market share there with NVIDIA, I think they're going to be in a good spot in the near term. The other thing to note about AMD, they recently acquired a large language model company called Brium here. AMD acquires AI software company Brium, and they specialized in building large language model technology that could essentially be faster than the SG Lang, the things that most companies like ChatGPT use. How it takes a while to get a response. Like I give you an example for the next stock. What are we going to analyze? The next one on there was, we'll do EVTL from, who is it? Who did the EVTL? Moheen. So EVTL. So when I use our app, I do EVTL. It's taken a little bit, you see? It's actually pulling the relative financials. We're using Grok right now. We could do OpenAI or Grok. And this is the app Mercatus we use. Did you see how it took a little bit? Did you see how it took about, I don't know, it's getting faster. We're working on optimizing, but it took us about 10 seconds to get this future projection for this stock. And it looks like it was fairly bullish, maybe about 2 to 3% over the next week potentially. So let's take a look at it. But do you see how that took a little bit? So basically, before we jump in, just keeping on that note, tying together AMD with that Bream acquisition, the Bream focus is this software company that you could see Bream versus SG Lang. And on the left, you have this running, they're both running on AMD. On the left, you have Bream. On the right, you have SG Lang, which is like a very common, large language model. Now, on the left, you see how fast it's moving, and the response is like very, very quick. You see that on the left? So that's actually what AMD did, is they bought the company that was building out this software that runs the large language models faster, essentially. So just keep that in mind, as that could be a really good technology that could give AMD an edge. And it looks like they're moving towards that ChatGPT type offering where they have a large language model for the public potentially. So just keep that in mind. Now, this is going to be a defense company, I believe. So we kind of touched on AMD. We touched on APLD, so data centers. We touched a little bit there on Taiwan Semi. But really what we're looking at, this is EVTL. Let's see what the deal is here. Moheen, what was the thought process on this one, EVTL? It's Vertical Aerospace Limited, $450 million market cap. Let me jump into the financials. Is that okay? All right. Net income, let's see. They've had negative net income of about $1 billion 2024. There's nothing there from a revenue standpoint. And they have more liabilities at about $260 million in liabilities than they do assets. So that is not a good financial balance sheet, because they could potentially go bankrupt. When you have more liabilities than assets, simply put, it's like they owe the bank more than they have and that they make. And if the bank ever wants that money, they will have to declare bankruptcy. So just keep that in mind. I don't see that from a financial perspective, probably not even really worth looking at their product. But, Vertical Aerospace is what they're called. So again, very, very, very negative balance sheets and potentially on verge of bankruptcy from the balance sheet perspective. But they have a really cool, so the reason you looked at, like, we could see negative net income and be like, okay, that's okay. That's all right. They're not making money. That's all right. But if they have a negative balance sheet or like more liabilities than they do have assets, then that basically means that they don't have runway really, So it's like this eVTOL, they got a prototype. I like the tech because it's in the right, it's a market that's getting a lot more eyeballs, and you can see they have some partners, and you also don't know, maybe the partners to them, when they say Molicel or they say Honeywell, which are, noticeably good partners, maybe that's not a partnership. Maybe they're saying it's a partnership, but really what it means is they ordered some parts from them and they say that they're a partner, because based on what we saw from the financials, not really indicating any growth, and we didn't see any recent contracts that would indicate that either. So yeah, that's why we're not going to invest in them, basically. But hopefully that's helpful. Appreciate the ticker symbol, and thanks for dropping it there. All right, so Michael Anthony says 200-day on AMD is 125. The PNF chart has major support, will be at 121. It's possible. That's a very bearish outlook, and we could see that. They do have some downward pressure at the moment on AMD, But 120, let's see where that would be. Is that down here? Yeah. Well, let's see. 120. Yeah. This level down here. They still have a few levels. They have this 150 where they would bounce potentially. So that's one to watch. And then that 150, they would still have to break this level too, which is a 130. Things come in waves with semiconductors. We see that quite often. And we're fine with that. And in fact, if it's going down and we really see that direction continue, maybe we do end up shorting it and getting on the other side of it, because we do understand the company, we do understand the direction, and we oftentimes can spot patterns with the company that make sense for us to pay attention to. But when it comes to the levels, 120, that's very conservative. We'd be looking at 2 levels of support broken on the way there. I think that would be pretty abrupt, and most likely would not happen unless we see very heavy downward pressure on the market or something, because AMD is doing too much right now. And I talked about this back when they were crushing earnings and selling down. Every company we've seen partner with SpaceX and Starlink has done really good. Like, you could look at T-Mobile. You guys probably have seen T-Mobile ads. When T-Mobile partnered with Starlink, ever since then, they absolutely just surged. Like, this was when they partnered with Starlink at $100 a share. They've gone up 142%. They've had their pullbacks for sure, but I think AMD, I think that would be super conservative to see 120. I would be fairly more bullish on them than seeing that level. I'm actually looking at 150 potential bounce here. But I appreciate the insight, and you could absolutely be right. Just the most important thing is that you have a plan and that you're able to execute it and manage that position responsibly. Elvis says, do you think Redwire is going to make a comeback soon? From the financials that we see with Redwire is they have a current balance sheet that's larger than their market cap. So their space tech is in a really good place to harness a recovery. Right now, they're at a support level at about $8 a share. And the next target for a bullish target, if they can hold this $8 a share, which we did see a bounce there on Friday, would be a target of about $9.80. This is the bullish outlook. The bearish outlook is that they don't hold this $8 support, they sell down more. When I was able to meet them at a conference, they had some really good tech and partnerships with Air Force Research Laboratory. They also expanded into some drone tech recently. And while they are kind of all over the place, and some of their operations do seem to be, like, I would say experimental, but cool. Like, they're doing like a lunar base, for example, and they just signed a contract this past week that was a $25 million contract for working with NASA on drug discovery in space here, on orbit operations here. $25 million. They just signed it last week. But they have a bunch of contracts. While it seems like they're kind of all over the place sometimes, I do think from a financial perspective, they've really done things well. They got a $1.2 billion market cap, and the revenue's at $60 million a quarter, which is pretty good, given that on top of that, their balance sheet is at $1.5 billion in assets. Annually, they're really growing their revenue about 24% year over year. So we see that increase is something you like to see in a space company that you don't always see. And it's probably because they're working with defense as well. So targets and kind of where they look at, just from the perspective of Redwire's comeback, let's say, they're just at that support at $8. So they're looking for that recovery. Yeah. Moheen says the company had approximately 1,500 pre-orders for the eVTOL aircraft placed by major airlines and organizations such as American Airlines for that company. Got it. Okay. Yeah, pre-orders are one thing and are oftentimes refundable, and sometimes means that they take a lot longer. So while that's really great, we would want to see it reflected in the revenue as well, Moheen. But I really appreciate that information. It really helps with the company. but it hasn't really shown up on the balance sheet yet, you know? So Marty says, I'd be interested in MOBX. You're still digging deep. You got clearance to use their technology on naval ships. Got it. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, Michael says EVTL is on a double bottom. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, from the financial perspective, though, it just didn't make any sense, right? I mean, are you guys seeing something different? Balance sheets, they have 87 million in assets and they have 263 million in liabilities. And their revenue isn't, they've had no revenue yet. So I don't see it yet. But we can cover them more. How about we add them over to our aviation tech watch list? We can keep up to date, see if they have any product developments. Or like you said, those deals potentially. See how that looks. Awesome. All right, guys. So, we got to cover a lot of semiconductor companies, data center companies. We got into a little bit of space tech here as well. And I really enjoyed the fast growing outlook on AI for the data centers. This week, we had some quantum companies we went over, which if you don't know about quantum companies, you're definitely going to want to watch some of the videos for this week because what we're learning about some of the technology is crucial to know as an investor. Not really any short-term positions in any of these quantum companies, I'll tell you that, because of the volatility and also some of the expectation that we could be looking at in the market of quantum over the next few weeks, just to kind of preface where we're going to be going and give you a rundown. There's going to be some new technology you'll want to look at, but also some moves that you want to just watch out for really on the quantum market. So we'll be taking a look there. Nico says, hey coach, how's APLD looking? Yeah, man, we took a look at APLD. It was a full breakdown today of some of the accelerating data center constructions they got going over for big tech. And we went through some articles as well. And it was one that you probably, if you're in APLD, it'd be helpful for you to potentially rewind and go take a look at it. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you all. Thanks so much for tuning in. And just a friendly reminder, because it was such an outpouring request that I got from people, they said, Will, bring back the lifetime access. I missed it on StockMates. We, as of now, for the time that we're here, time being here, you can get lifetime access to StockMate. We brought it back. That's right. There is the AI boom code there. If you want to grab, get in our live session on Monday. We have our live sessions Monday through Friday at Market Open. We'll be there. There's also going to be some earnings for this week, along with all of the targets and when companies are reporting earnings. And by popular demand, a big thing that was being requested was, Will, can we bring lifetime access back? What do we got to do that? And we made some adjustments, made it available to you. So it's the second link in the description. I'll send you over a free t-shirt. You'll get access to our live trading as well at Market Open on Monday. Thanks so much for tuning in. If I earned your thumbs up, guys, hit the like button. Do consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. And Mark, thanks for tuning in. Burry, Nico, thank you. Thank you, Sniz, and Michael, Marty, Moheen, Elvis, thanks for tuning in. Justin, what's up, Justin? Brandon, I appreciate you. G, Vlad, Kush, and Lear, thanks for tuning in. Lear says PPTA. I don't know those ones, but we'll have to take a look. M. Burry, thanks for tuning in. Alex, Brandon, Patrick, thanks for the donation there. We'll make sure to put it into something good for you to make better content for you. And Corey, thanks for tuning in, as well as ENS and Saber Skies. Appreciate you. Thanks so much, guys. Have a good rest of your Saturday night, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.